trying to mute that thing, but I don't know if I'm gonna get there in time. Sometimes I don't have enough
never know.
notice, so I'll do my best to try and hit the mute button. But can't promise I always will. But anyway, hi, welcome back to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. And Sean and I are trying to have this very unstaged conversation at the intro because we decided we didn't like the format of the introduction. It was all too sort of formal and stiff, and so we just wanted to have a bit more of a loose, flowing intro.
Yeah, I kind of feel like those intros were very old-fashioned.
They're a bit formulaic.
It just didn't feel vibey,
Didn't feel on brand.
I wasn't vibing with it.
So, welcome back anyway. This is Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong, a podcast where two friends, two exes, get together and talk. And it can be about trivial stuff. It can be about very serious stuff. It can be about whatever is on our minds that week. My name is Josh. I'm one of the hosts. And Sean?
Yeah, I'm
over
Sean.
to you.
If you couldn't work that out, my name is Sean.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the other hosts.
The only other host.
The only other. Well, you never know. One day we might have a guest host. Or...
Hill did make a very brief cameo appearance a few episodes ago.
Yeah, he waved. He's no danger of him walking in today because he's still in Mexico.
Yeah.
So,
lucky bastard.
Yeah, the weather looks amazing, and yeah, he's having a lovely time.
What's
that?
No, what were you going to say?
I don't know how he's going to come back here to this weather. I mean, it is so grim in London.
Yeah.
I know, it's a very London, UK thing to do to complain all the time about the weather, but it is absolutely dire. I don't enjoy any second of it.
I was just going to say, it's in a similar vein that, we're recording this on the very last day of January. And can we just say, fuck off to January? Because I really hate January. I think February can be brutal as well. But I really just think January is such a bastard.
Yeah, so... February is not coming with the goods either. I just looked at the 2-week weather forecast, the 14-day weather forecast. And we're lucky if we get to 7 or 8 degrees most days.
I know. And it's sad that actually, compared to where we were a couple of weeks ago, that actually seems quite pleasant, But it's grim. It's grim. Anyway, this is not the content you tuned in for, I'm sure.
I don't know what people think they're tuning in for.
But, it's just such cliche, isn't it, to be sitting in England talking about the weather.
But that's a slice of real life for people. That's how people live in England. We all moan about it, and people here moan when it gets hot. So
yeah, that's all we just moan. That's all. Is that what this podcast is? It's just us moaning about getting old, moaning about politics, moaning about I don't know. What else do we moan about?
Talking about moaning about politics. What was that word that you watched at me before?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, but I say Kakistocracy. Kakistocracy, and it's a real word. It's not just. It sounds like in shitification. It sounds like it's a recently used word, but it has origins from the 17th century, and it's from two Greek words. I mean, ocracy is obviously really familiar to us.
Yeah,
autocracy. But kaki meaning like the least capable, and so kakistocracy is a government made up of the least suitable or competent citizens of a state. Okay. And it's obviously very pertinent to current times. I have to, before we get into that, I do have to apologize. I have been, and this is also not the content you tuned in for, but I've been very, very ill this last week, and today is actually the first day that I've said to Sean I might be able to sit upright for an hour and record an episode of the podcast. So I'm trying really hard not to cough. I'm trying to get to that mute button as we were discussing at the intro. If I do cough, if I don't manage to get there, I'll try and edit out my my hacking as and when it happens. But I was so gutted. I was supposed to be, I think I mentioned it on the podcast several times, I was supposed to be up in Leeds this week, visiting our friend Anna, and we were supposed to be planning our trip to the US next year for our 50th, planning our road trip. we were supposed to go over to York for the day to see the Dolly Parton musical. I mean, it was just, I was so upset not to get there.
It's really depressing when you are too unwell to get away for a break from work.
Yeah.
It
And
is.
I'd worked extra days for the last 2 weeks at work so I could take this week off. And then I've literally been in bed for 5 days now. And
So you don't get those days back, or like that's it now?
That's it. That's it. And, you know, it is what it is, which is a really annoying thing people say, but it was what it was.
It
And
is what it is. Where does that, is that some sort of new agey sort of?
I don't know. I think Eckhart Tolle, I think he used it a lot. I don't think he came up with
Well,
it.
he probably stole it from some sort of Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah. But where was I going with that? Oh, the work thing. It's okay. So tell me then. You can tell me, Sean, but our listeners can tell me as well. Tell me if am I the asshole in the situation? So we had tickets to see the Dolly Parton musical on Wednesday night or Tuesday night. I can't remember what night it was, but obviously I couldn't go. And another friend of ours, I'm not going to mention her name, she was going as well. And I messaged her the day before. I said, look, I've had to cancel my trip. I'm not coming up, blah, blah, blah. Obviously I can't use the theatre tickets tomorrow night. Do you know anyone that might want to go? So she said, she said, that's a real shame, blah, blah, blah. Let me check, see if there's anyone I know. So I don't know if it was maybe the next day. She said, I found someone for the tickets tonight. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, great. Give me their email and I can forward them the tickets. So I did. And I forwarded the tickets to them.
Yeah.
Not a word of thanks, Sue. And, I was just, it's not a big deal, but I was just thinking about it yesterday, Langin, but I was like...
Not a word of thanks from who? Like your friend or the person?
From anyone. From anyone.
Well, doesn't the person that you're referring to listen to this podcast?
I don't know if she does or not. And if she does, she can tell her friends that got the tickets that
I'm getting a bit lost here, but if I think you're referring to the person that I think you're referring to...
Yeah,
I was looking back over an old episode, and you responded to one of their comments on the podcast.
Did I?
Yeah,
well,
like a few months ago.
My memory is not good at the best of times, but particularly
especially when it's riddled with flu.
But yeah, so I was thinking about it yesterday. I just thought, am I being an asshole here, or would it not been a courteous thing to do to just reply?
How do you know that it got through?
Well, I don't. I assume it did.
Well, you could be really passive-aggressive and petty and write to them and saying, hey, I'm just checking in to see how the show was.
Because in my email, I forwarded the tickets and I said, enjoy the show. And then I was just thinking about it. I was like, what? Not a word of thanks or even an acknowledgement. Anyway.
Why don't you write to them and say, like, did you enjoy the show?
Well, I don't know. Write them like a 7-paragraph missive. Anyway, maybe...
Well, you are publicly shaming them here on this podcast.
Well, I don't know. I don't even know their name. I know their email address. I'm not going to like read out their email address in the podcast. Yeah. But anyway, it's just one of the things that comes to mind when you're convalescing from.
You didn't ask for money for the tickets.
No. That's the other thing. It was 2 free tickets to a show, and not a word of thanks. There you go. That's life.
Wasn't the friend that you asked for help to give them away, wasn't she also going to the show with you?
Yeah.
So she, as far as you know, she also went to the show.
Yes. Yeah, she did. She sent me a video from the show at the end of the show, like from the sort of.
And then when she panned around with the 2 empty seats next to her.
No, she didn't. She was on the stage. The video was on the stage of the final ovation sort of thing, standing ovation thing.
Oh, you meant she wasn't on the stage?
No, she wasn't on the stage. No.
Oh God! I thought she was up there like, "What get 9 to 5?"
No,
was that the song in the finale?
But it was like a medley, so it was that, and it was I Will Always Love You.
Mega Mix. It's like the Steps musical, and
right.
I think at the end they do like a reprise that's like all like the up-tempo Steps songs.
Sounds amazing.
I don't know. We're going to get back to Kakistocracy or whatever it's called.
Kakistocracy. I also love it because, of course, khaki is a slang word, and in Spanish as well, I think, in English and in Spanish.
Caca.
Oh, caca. Well, caca. It's close enough to shit, so it ties in quite nicely within.
So, I mean, we can get back to that, but talking about like pop musicals, I mean, like this Dolly thing, it's not based on the life of Dolly, right?
No.
And then we talked about it before. We don't need to go over it. But like this Steps one, it's also not about the people in Steps. It's just using the music of Steps.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was like a Stock Aitken and Waterman one that's currently touring the UK.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there was a Jagged Little Pill, that Alanis Morissette album.
Mm-hmm.
There was also like a Take That one recently. And they made a movie out of it. I don't know if it was very super successful.
Mm-hmm.
But have you seen the trailers and any footage from this Robbie Williams movie?
Oh, I can't. I think I saw 1 second clip and I just had to quickly close the window. I just can't. I can't take it seriously. I'm
perversely interested in it. Like, how did this concept get made into like a £100 million movie or however much it costs to make?
I don't know. I find Robbie Williams an incredibly annoying person, which sounds very harsh and unfair, given that I don't know him personally. But I just find him irritating. I don't really like any of his artistic output. I don't like any of his songs.
Were you a Take That fan?
Yeah.
What did you like about
yes,
Take
I mean, fan. I just fancied Mark Owen. That was it. Like,
really?
A couple of
their.
I don't know. Look, the choices we make when we're young, we can't be asked to back them up as adults.
So I've been going down a little bit of a Take That like spiral because
I mean, just for the record, you of course were a Take That super fan.
Yeah, super fan. There were bigger fans than me.
The 3 others.
Julie and Tony.
Right. Well, in fact, okay, here's a funny story. So when I met you, so this is Sydney, 1997. Yeah. And I'd been going to this club on William Street, Club 77, is that what it's called?
77 William Street.
77 William Street in Sydney, which is kind of halfway between the CBD and King's Cross. Anyway, I've been going to this night, and they played sort of retro pop.
Like Britpop. It was a really big Britpop.
Anyway, I met these 2 people, Julie and Tony, and got chatting to them, and I don't know if it was that night or the following week that Julie said to me, "Oh, my friend Sean's coming." It was the following week. My friend Sean's coming tonight. He thinks he's a bigger Take That fan than I am. And that was the context in which I met you. Some pretender to the throne.
But they were like so hilariously vile to everybody. Like at the time, I didn't think it was very funny because, they were like, did that really queer thing of like just being absolutely vile to people as either a protection strategy or an act of endearment to their friends.
Yeah.
Like it was really
it's a cultural thing.
Yeah, it was like they would read you to filth, right? Like they were, and I can remember when we were camped outside the State Theatre to see the Spice Girls introduce Spice the movie or Spice World the movie. What was it called? Spice World the movie or Spice the movie?
Spice the movie, I think.
I forget what it was called. But anyway, we were sat outside so we could get in first and get get seats. And the Spice Girls were going to walk on stage and introduce the movie. And we were sat outside for hours, and there was a young girl, like a little girl there with like her Spice Girls dolls, and then all of us.
How old?
Like... Well, she looked about 11, and then Julie and Tony and me and a few other of these, super fans were all sat around, and we were all in our 20s. So it was probably not the most age-appropriate activity to be doing for us, because this was a movie made for little kids, really. It was teenagers, and we were in our 20s. And I can remember this little girl was there with her dad or a parent or a carer, and Julie and Tony like sort of looked at each other and rolled their eyes. We're like,
does she think she is a bigger Take That?
Yeah,
a bigger Spice Girls fan?
Similar. I don't know if either Tony or Julie would remember this, but they said something like, "Oh, look who's like thinks they're like the biggest." Just because they've got the doll, thinks they're the biggest Spice Girls fan,
Vile, absolutely
and like,
vile.
there were obviously, there was a lot of it was very tongue in cheek, but there was enough malice and vitriol in the way they used to say things. It was quite confronting, and I I remember once I was a big fan. Like, my music taste is, I don't give any shits. You know what I mean? Like, if something grabs my attention, I'll like it.
If it speaks to you, it speaks to you, Sue.
So there was this boy band in Australia called Human Nature. We might have even spoken about them
before. I don't think we, yeah.
And they are the bottom of the barrel when it comes to that sort of act. Like, just not very good. Like, they were good singers.
To their credit, I'd rather listen to them than Robbie Williams.
Okay. Well,
which isn't saying much.
Like,
but,
Tony and Julie were, for whatever reason, so into making fun of people and putting people down as one of their pastimes. I remember I was living in West End in Brisbane, and I was living with Glenn, my friend Glenn, and the phone rang. This was before mobile phones, and Glenn answered the phone and said, "Hey, it's for you. Someone called Toby," and Toby was one of the singers from Human Nature. And I answered. I went, "Oh, hi." And it was them, Tony and Julie, on the other end of the phone, laughing at me because I thought Toby called me.
So did you know them before you lived in Sydney then?
Yeah, because I met them through, like, oh man, this is so tragic. I went on when Take That toured Australia on their arena tour, and they played Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth. I went and did every show. I went to every show on the tour.
Oh, and that's when you met them.
And so I met them, and so we would be like hanging out in the bar or trying to meet the band, or like, and we were all absolute alcoholics. And
Julie worked at Smash Hits, right? Is that
no?
It was her friend Pauline. That's right.
And
Pauline,
I don't know who Pauline was originally friends with.
I've just realised that Julie's made an appearance on this podcast before, and I can't remember who we were talking about, but some singer, you bought like a 12-inch picture disc of someone for $1 and then sold it to Julie for $100 or something.
Yeah, it was a Bros picture
disc.
That's
That's right, a Bros one, yeah.
And I bought it for like $1 or 99 cents and sold it for like $100 or $99 to her. So I had money to buy a ticket to see Alanis Morissette from a scalper.
That's right. Yeah.
But so I've been watching all of these Take That videos because now it's in my algorithm because I dared to watch like 10 seconds of something.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a Take That fan, I don't know how big a Take That fan you were, but I had all the VHS, like the official VHS tapes they released as well, like Live in Berlin or Live in Manchester, Hometown, or Take That and Party, the music videos. Like, I had all of these, and I would just sit and watch them over and over and over again. It was like one of my obsession with Madonna used to be, or Morrissey.
No, I was a Fairweather fan. I was, I think I maybe bought one album and a couple of singles. That was it.
And so what year were they hyper famous? Like the mid-90s, right?
You're asking the wrong person.
I think around 93 to 96 or something, right? Because by the time I met you, they were kind of like on the way out, right? Like that first time. They've been back a few times, and they rebanded. Now there's only 3 of them, and Robbie joined for a while again. But this morning I was watching some of these Take That videos, like snippets of videos from their VHS tapes that are on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen these things for about 30 years, or just under 30 years. I could remember word for word, even the ad libs that they were saying in between songs, or the looks they gave each other, or, oh, this is the bit where like Howard slaps his ass on stage and Relight My Fire, or this is the bit where, Robbie pretends to forget the words to this rock and roll song he's singing. Like, I could remember every single snippet and frame of that, and it was so scary, like how much I must have watched. What have you watched over time that has that many times that is cemented in your brain? Like,
Well, I mean, just keeping on topic from our episode last week, but obviously with the death of David Lynch and me being ill in bed, I just decided to rewatch all of Twin Peaks, and that was, something I hadn't watched in years. And it was incredible how much of the dialogue just sort of I remembered, it just came back to me just from watching
Yeah.
In the last few days. But yeah, there are loads of things. I mean, there are things in the vein of sort of music. There are like Madonna things like that. All the backstage footage from In Bed with Madonna or Truth or Dare, things like that. That yeah, they just I think impressionable young minds are just they're like sponges to that sort of thing, aren't they?
Yeah, I was like that with the movie Heathers,
Oh yeah,
with Winona Ryder. Like, if I watch that, my brain thinks along with the script. Like,
yeah.
also, I maybe not have seen it as many times, but for some reason it's very memorable to me is Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Mm-hmm.
The dialogue from that is very memorable and entrenched in my brain. But like, if
Yeah.
you look back at Truth or Dare, or In Bed with Madonna, as it was called in our territories, what are like some of the most iconic lines from that you remember, or like people quote or you used to think of or say?
I mean, looking back at it now, I mean, when I first watched it, and probably the first 20 times that I watched it, I was such a huge Madonna fan that she could do no wrong. And looking back at it now, I think she's kind of an asshole in a lot of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is context. Like, we know
Mm-hmm.
now that most of the backing dancers said that she completely sort of fabricated this closeness for the purpose of the film, and whether or not that's true, I'm sure there's an element of that is true. But even stuff like when the makeup artist, what's her name? But
Yeah, I
not
can't
Shelley.
remember her name, but
Shelley. Anyway, but she gets sexually assaulted during the making of the documentary, and Madonna's sort of making jokes about it, and then whether or not there's an element of truth to it or not, Madonna sort of says on camera that, oh, maybe it was they only picked her because she's on my tour, sort of thing, which may or may not be true, but just this real like, callous attitude, but also just like laughing about it as well, like,
yeah,
which
and I mean, it's I suppose
it's
it's important to note we don't know what happened when the cameras were off as
well,
well.
no,
Like,
exactly,
and
like
we don't
Madonna
know
might
if
have,
Madonna didn't want to show herself being sympathetic to anybody.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like the whole film is very much a fabricated image of what she wanted the world to see, but it's surprising. But we've spoken about it before on the podcast about how it's very easy to look through things with today's lens and not think of, at the time, like, trivializing sexual assault on women was the norm. I mean, it was the
Yeah,
standard. I mean, even today, it's still not taken as seriously as it should be and needs to be. But
yeah.
especially back in when did that come out? That was the 90s as well, wasn't it?
90,
91.
It must have been 91 because
You
the
know,
tour was in 1990.
yeah. So yeah, it's very easy to look back critically now, but I mean that's the. But what was the question? What things stick out? That sticks out to me.
But
The
like, are
sexual
there any
assault
of the
thing.
catchphrases or lines that maybe some of the background dancers or say that you kind of always remember, like as like rote
Um,
learning?
there's that really famous scene where she's like, she's going on about the people in the front row. The what does she say? She's talking to her manager, isn't she, Freddie the man? What does she say? I mean, my memory. She said, "Oh, get me, put me on a different put me on another fucking
Yeah,
frequency or
like,
something."
I'm
What's she
singing,
talking about?
my mic cuts out and people think the show's over,
Yeah,
and they go, "Why isn't it happening to Donna and Nikki?" Oh, because they're on a different
mm.
frequency. Well, put me on their fucking frequency. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite iconic. Or I think the one that most people I hear people quote, and when they talk about the film, is "Do something else. Do my
I'll
eyebrows."
do my eyebrows. Yeah,
Because
yeah,
somebody's trying to paint her lips, but she's talking to, is it Warren Beatty or Christopher, her brother? But she's
yeah. I don't
talking
know.
and she's like, "Do something else. Do my eyebrows," so she can keep complaining.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Also, that line where they're going past the dancers are on the bus and they're going past. It looks like somebody getting married on the
Oh
street,
yeah.
and they scream, "Don't do it! Don't do it! He's a tramp! He's a tramp!"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are a lot of iconic
Why don't you take
lines.
a pole and shove it up your
And
ass?
shove it
That
up your
one.
ass.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Anyway, again, maybe not the content that people tuned in for, but we could do a whole episode of
do you
just
know what the content people don't tune in for is?
it's me sniffing.
No, you saying this is not the content people tuned in for. That's the content people don't tune in for.
Are you saying? Are you trying
like
to oust me from the pod?
like this video, if you agree that you don't want to hear us saying, "Oh, people don't like this."
Like, yeah.
So,
All right.
what's your before we get back to politics?
Back
What's
to
your
Kakistocracy.
do you have favorite Take That songs? I just want to wrap this up. This Take That.
Well, I think "Pray" is a nice song, and I really loved. There was an a cappella version on the B side of the single, which I liked. And oh no, hang on, wait a minute. Was it a cappella "Pray," or was it maybe "Pray" was the A side and the B side was an a cappella version of "A Million Love Songs"? I can't remember.
I
Anyway,
know. Well, Julie and Tony will know. So
well,
if they're listening,
exactly.
please chime in.
Any bigger Take That fan would know. And sorry, there's like a lot of wood pigeon activity happening outside my window. It's all very dramatic. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I think Pray is probably my number
They
one. What
had
about
some
you?
really, really uncool songs, didn't they? Like, I know that people will roast me for this, like fans, but like things like "A Million Love Songs" was so, or "Love Ain't Here Anymore," like
Oh,
that
that's
was
terrible.
so uncool. Like, but then I like some of the songs. I mean, "Back for Good" is incredible. Like, it's a
Hmm.
really well written, well performed pop song. Like,
Yeah,
it's I think that's the pinnacle of probably what Gary Barlow has done as a songwriter. I'm not saying there aren't better songs that he's written, but I think when everything came together,
hmm,
like the popularity of the band, his songwriting, his vocals, everything, I think that was the pinnacle. But it's a shame that they're just such a uninteresting or even unlikable bunch of people now. Like,
disappointing is the word that came to my mind.
like
Yeah.
how Gary got all up involved with the Tories, like the Conservative Party, and like did some sort of event for them where he was saying, "Hey, you should vote for them," or like that. We talked about it before, how they did all that like money tax evasion
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah.
but also what goes on with these bands, right? Where they audition people for the band. And the Spice Girls are like this as well. And there are a number of people in the band who cannot sing or cannot sing to a level that you would expect from a pop star. Like, I don't think they ever put Jason Orange's microphone on in Take That. Like,
No,
it was a
no.
running joke that he could not sing. And even when you watch these old concert videos where they all do a solo, he comes out and dances, like, or shakes like a rain stick or something. And Howard and Mark were really poor vocalists and still are. Like, they can
Mhm.
barely be heard. And Gary and Robbie are good performers. But how do three of the five end up being either non-singers or not very good singers when you've run auditions of hundreds of people?
Who knows? But it's such a fabricated and problematic way to put a band together anyway. But yeah, you do wonder of all the hundreds of people that must have auditioned, they were the best fit in terms of look and sound.
And the same with like Victoria or Jerry in the Spice Girls. I mean, they are horrible vocalists. And I mean, I used to be a big Joe fan once again before she was a fucking Tory. Like, what happens to all these pop stars that they? Is it because people become super wealthy and they just lose touch with reality?
Probably, yeah. Well, no, I think they were always probably just, probably maybe not anymore, but in the past, about 50% of voters would have been Tory leaning, and 50%, not exactly, but are in the region of. And so, yeah, but as people get older and they get richer, um,
Mm-hmm.
hang on, I'm just going to mute my microphone for a second.
Well, I while Josh coughs, I was like a super fan of Take That and then Gary Barlow and the Spice Girls and then Jerry Halliwell. But as I've gotten older, I've had to I've made the choice to distance myself like emotionally and commercially from being a fan of those people, because to me their political outlook or their like I could even deal with somebody being like non-committal about stuff. Like I'd probably still listen to their music. But for somebody to come out and be like supporting politicians who, you know, have racist and anti-worker policies and anti-queer policies, I can't do it. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that anymore. You know, we've talked about why like I stopped being a Morrissey super fan.
Mm-hmm.
So but yeah, I'm just very curious how, like, I was watching these Take That videos and I was like, these people, some of these people are terrible singers or
Mm-hmm.
non-singers. How
Mm-hmm.
on earth did they get picked? Like, I'm not saying, you know, anyone can do whatever they want, anyone can release music, but if somebody sat down and said, okay, I'm going to pick 5 guys, I also, not to be mean about it, but I don't think
Well, one of us had to say it,
I
so
don't think they were even particularly that good looking to be in that band. So if you were
no.
like, anyone could have danced like that. Any kid from Manchester or Stoke or wherever they were picking these kids from could have danced. They could have taught them to dance, right? But to be average to ugly, that's so mean. That's so mean. And then not be able to sing on top of it. Like, how do you get picked to be in a band? There's this famous quote from a drag performer called Gia Gunn, or from Drag Race, and somebody, I don't know, walks into the workroom and their drag is like lacking, for a better term, and then it cuts to Gia Gunn off camera giving like a voiceover going, well, I suppose there's room for everybody. And it's sort of like this shady read. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how
Yeah.
these people end up being in bands. I mean, you could go through all of these boy bands or like girl bands, and there's often somebody who wasn't a good singer or wasn't very
Do you
nice to look at.
do you think they? It sounds really mean, but do you think they sometimes pick the sort of less presentable ones to make the others look
Less
better,
presentable. That is so hilarious.
less appealing? I don't know.
Like
What's a nice way of
you've
saying
always
it?
got to have
There's
a you've always got to have a runt in the litter. But yeah, I think sometimes, and I was thinking it again this morning when I was watching these Take That videos. I was like, did Gary collude with Nigel Martin Smith, the manager, to
Hmm.
get people he knew wouldn't overshadow him in any way? Like, did they say, hey, we need like one, you know, some people who can kind of hold a tune just so they can harmonize or sing the backing vocals, but
Hmm.
let's just get people to fill the space because really he got signed first and then they were like, actually, we need a band to market you.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think maybe they picked people who deliberately wouldn't, and then deliberately wouldn't resent being in the background, right? Not being in
right,
the spotlight.
yeah,
But then, you know, the problem happened that, you know, Robbie had, you know, for better or worse, aspirations and what some people see as talent
hmm
for songwriting and performing.
hmm
And, you know, I don't think he's an amazing vocalist, but he's competent, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And um and so kind of it all fell apart then, you know, like when Robbie was like, oh yeah, I'm not taking this shit anymore.
mm.
But
But in the case
anyway,
of the Spice Girls, I don't think any of them were the sort of founder of the group, were they? They all came in at the audition process.
I think so.
So,
Although I think there was somebody else who was meant to be in it, and after a few weeks, she dropped out, and they replaced her. Maybe with Emma.
okay,
I'm not sure if that I've got that right. But once again, I mean, who in that group was a good vocalist? I mean, Melanie Chisholm, Sporty Spice, was a strong singer, but
yeah,
her
but
voice isn't particularly pleasant to listen to. And I mean, Victoria and Jerry, you can hear them out of tune on the produced records. Like you can hear them pitchy and not being able to carry the tune properly in the final product.
yeah,
So
yeah,
and then
I don't know what goes
and
on.
then like Sporty Spice and Baby Spice, like Mel B and Emma, they were like they if they ever had to do
Scary
anything.
Spice.
Oh, who did
So
I say?
It says Baby Spice and Sporty Spice,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah,
okay, sorry. Scary Spice and Baby Spice.
Baby Spice.
They couldn't really sing with much power. So any of their stuff was either sort of half spoken or whispering singing. And like, yeah, Mel C was the only one who could belt it out, and so she'd always get those like outros and stuff where she was
Yeah,
like, "Say
yeah,
you'll be there," you know.
yeah.
But yeah, how do these
I,
people end up in these fucking bands and they
I,
can't sing?
I just thought of that. I love that Sandra Bernhard joke she used to do. Do you remember that one? Maybe the first time we saw her in LA, and she did that joke. Which Spice Girl are you? And had
Mm-hmm.
Old Spice.
Uh-huh.
That's good.
But what was that? Was she making fun that she was old, or was she
Yeah, I
making
think
fun of?
so.
I thought I always read that joke as she was making fun of Jerry being old.
Oh, really?
Because
I
that was
didn't
like
get
a
that.
running joke in the media for a while. Like she's too old to be a Spice Girl. Like because she looked like a 40-year-old person. Like she like her heavy makeup and her roots and stuff. The
That's
joke
a bit
was
mean, I think.
no, but that was the joke. That was the media was vile and absolutely atrocious to women in media. But the it was often said that she was too old. Like
Really?
yeah,
I
that
don't
was
remember
like
that.
a sentiment in the gutter press. The tabloids.
I thought Sandy B was just making reference to herself in that situation. But
Oh, I thought she was making fun of Jerry being old.
well,
Um,
we'll have to ask her.
so anyway, can we get back to? I went off on such a take that tangent, and I've got this perverse curiosity for that Robbie Williams movie. Like, I
I
don't like
can't.
any of his solo music at all, but
Yeah,
I'm curious about the movie as an art form, like why they did that and have a monkey, like an animated CGI monkey playing him.
yeah. I can't go near it.
I mean, I'm sure there must be artistic reasons why they did it, but
Well, I mean, is it just too obvious to see it as his attempt at taking the spotlight off him, or is it an attempt to portray how much he feels like he has felt like just a performing monkey
yeah, I suppose.
throughout most of his career? I mean, that to me is too obvious. So is there another reason why
Yeah,
he's done that?
and I know I just said we'd finish talking about Take That, but like they still perform and they like play at Wembley Stadium and stuff. Like they're really
Yeah,
big.
but it's only three of them now. Is
Yeah,
that right?
three of them. And this is another thing to be like scandalous about it. I think Gary only keeps those other two around now because he can sell out a stadium with them. But if he went
Mm,
out with a solo record, like he might sell like 5,000 copies. Nobody
yeah.
gives a shit, and he has to play like I don't know the Brighton Centre or something. But
Hmm.
with as Take That, it has the historical weight and popularity behind it that just he could show up with only two of them,
Mm,
and Robbie's not there and Jason's not there, but they'll sell out like multiple nights at a stadium. And
mm.
I'm like, I think he is such a performer, and that's what he wants to do with his life, that he's willing to make that compromise to get the crowd there and do it. And I don't know, I find that a little depressing.
I will say it is very difficult. In my experience, it's been really difficult to find people that can harmonize, like do live harmonies, even within a sort of target group or a sample group of people who get up on stage and sing. It's very difficult to find somebody that can actually do that in unison with you and
Mm-hmm.
harmonize. So maybe that's another, probably a much lesser reason, but maybe that's another consideration, another factor in wanting to continue doing it with certain people. But probably it's more, like you said, it's more to do with the fact that he can just sell more tickets that way.
Yeah, and I think that he is a legitimate artist and performer. Like, he might not be everyone's taste. Like, he's a genuinely interested in songwriting and singing and
Mm,
performing, and he
yeah.
wants to do it at that level. And this is what he has to do to make it happen. He wants to perform and he wants to sing and write songs. But I mean, it's become way too dreary for me. Like, and
Yeah.
also all of the like, I could probably overlook some of how mediocre the music styling is if he wasn't like such problematic about the tax evasion and the supporting the Tories, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Tories, are they an example of Kakistocracy?
Well, not at the moment because they're not in power. But yeah, when they were in power, I would say they were a really good example of the least qualified people. I mean, Liz Truss is the most obvious example of that. But even putting her aside, I don't think Boris, I don't think Rishi, I don't think Theresa May, I don't think any of them were particularly good at leading the country. And I mean, it's sad now that looking back, you almost long for the days of Theresa May. I mean, not anymore because the Tories are out, but you know, Labour. Of course, I'd rather have Labour in power than the Tories, but I mean, it's not like they're the answer to our prayers, are they?
No, look at the fucking state of Wes Streeting and
exactly,
what
you
they're
know,
doing to the NHS and like not protecting trans people and
yeah,
trans rights.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe it's non-partisan. Maybe it's just across the board. Well, it goes hand in hand actually with the article I sent you a couple of weeks ago. There have been a few surveys done and some articles written about it, and I can't remember the exact stats off the top of my head, but it was something about how over 50% of young men aged, I don't know, 21 to 25 or something, over 50% don't favour democracy. They, I mean, it sounds so ludicrous to say it out loud.
What do you favour instead?
You know, they favour like a sort of dictatorship, as somebody that doesn't have to worry about parliamentary elections and democracy, who can just rule at their own command, and it's terrifying. But then also you look at the state of democracy and you think, well, yeah, I can see, obviously I'm in favour of democracy, but it's not a perfect situation, is it? It's not a perfect solution. And it's really flawed. But yeah, the Kakistocracy is just, I think, such a great term that exemplifies or summarizes what we're living in at the moment. And it's not just here in the UK and in the US especially. I mean, some of those Senate hearings with Robert F. Kennedy, I mean, we probably shouldn't even use his name out loud because then YouTube will tag him.
Well, if the tag, I mean, we are talking about him. I don't mind it being tagged, but he is like, it's not fair or probably even helpful to reduce people to terms like unintelligent or idiot or like. I actually think it's better for us to name someone like him as being dangerous, because
yes, no, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly plug my laptop in. I thought the power thing has come out. I don't want it to like die in the middle of recording, or I might die in the middle of recording. But I was thinking about it the other day when I was watching those things, those Senate inquiry. What do they call them? Senate inquiry hearings? Is that what they're called?
I don't know if they're inquiries.
Confirmation hearings. And I just was watching it, and I thought, there's a very, very tiny element of, I don't know if sympathy is even the word, because I just looked at that and I thought, this man he's not well. Like, he's really not well. Not that excuses his behavior or excuses his role in, you know, endangering the health and well-being of millions of people. But I just thought, you know, the same with Dump. I don't really have sympathy for him, but I think he's really unwell. I think everyone's just really unwell, you know.
Yeah, but, I think but we're all unwell.
We're all unwell.
Like,
exactly.
But some of us aren't going around trying to like endanger.
No,
or
it doesn't.
Implement policies that endanger like individuals and mass numbers of people.
it doesn't get them off the hook, and also like I think it was just a small thought that occurred to me, but I don't want that to be the main sort of takeaway from this. But yeah, like that Senate confirmation hearing was just so shocking. Hang on, I'm just going to mute.
Is that what that's called? I don't know if it's called. I'm just going to try and Google while you cough. What it's called? I don't know if it is for the Senate because he's not a senator. He is going to be.
No, but isn't it the Senate? Sorry, I'm back. Isn't it the Senate that has to confirm the nominated? I don't know. For all of the talk we do about US politics on this podcast, we don't know the.
They're like cabinet confirmation hearings, aren't they?
Are they? Okay.
But yeah,
but they don't call it
it's senators who are interviewing them
because they don't call it the cabinet in the US, do they?
Yeah.
Do they call it the cabinet?
Yeah. There's a headline here from CNN. It says dumps cabinet nominees face sharpest. Yeah.
Does it say dumps?
Yeah, face sharpest bipartisan grilling to date. And other takeaways from Thursday's.
Did you see the clips where Bernie Sanders had like on display? He had those like baby grow onesies, like the anti-vax ones. Did you see that?
No.
So Robert F. Kennedy has been famously anti-vax. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Has been famously. Yeah, maybe YouTube will tag the other Robert, R.F. Kennedy.
It's too late.
He's been famously anti-vax in the past, and now that he's what's his actual nomination? Health Secretary. Is that what the?
I think so. Yeah.
Secretary of Health Secretary. He's suddenly sort of backing himself, distancing himself from those anti-vax claims. But one of the organizations that he himself founded, was selling or is still selling anti-vax merch, like anti-vax baby wear that people can buy for their children to proudly boast how they're not vaccinated and stuff. And Bernie Sanders had them displayed, like pinned up on a like board behind him, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was just sort of like denying knowledge of their existence, or he just it's mind-blowing, and it's just Kakistocracy.
I would have preferred if Bernie was wearing a pair of those what was it, like a onesie or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would have been funny if he was in one while he was doing it.
Yeah.
But I was watching the Trixie and Carcho podcast the other day, and Trixie was talking about how infuriating it is as a US voter and citizen to not only have these dangerous and idiotic people in power, but then having no sense of being able to hold them accountable. And so if you, in any of these hearings or when someone is being interviewed by a member of the press, they will do anything but answer the question. And there is no accountability or way for anybody to ask for the truth or answers.
No.
And Trixie was giving a few examples of like when Vance was being interviewed and just not answering anything or talking to any of the talking points and just talking around in circles. And you notice that when a few of them were being questioned about January 6th, 2020, and what happened, I'm sure everybody knows. I don't need to recap. And so people were being asked, these cabinet nominees were being asked, do you agree to state publicly that Dump lost the 2020 election? And these people couldn't say or wouldn't say no. They would say things like, I agree that Joe Biden was sworn in as the president. And then they would get pressed and say, can you please state that you understand that he lost the election, and they wouldn't say it. And these are the people who are going to be some of the most powerful people on the planet. And they won't even just say, that was the truth.
There is no accountability really anymore in politics. Did you see that Liz Truss issued a legal threat to Keir Starmer that her lawyer anyway, asked or demanded that they stop using the phrase "crash the economy" when talking about Liz Truss. You know how Liz Truss crashed the economy, and that she actually issued a legal demand to Number 10 Downing Street that they stop using that phrase in connection with her name. And it's just the audacity of people to think they can rewrite history. And well, no, actually, it's not audacity. The sadness that they actually are able to in some cases rewrite history.
But I don't think her intention with that is to actually get them to stop saying it. I think her intention with that is just to draw attention to herself.
Maybe
She doesn't give it, I mean, absolute garbage that she comes out with. She is just one of these people now, one of these personalities that will say whatever they need to say to
stay in the headlines,
or to keep,
like what's her name, Katie Hopkins. Is that her name? Katie Hopkins. Yeah.
So I don't think that Liz Truss. I mean, she was never a serious contender for being a meaningful politician, but I don't think that's even her in pretense anymore.
I don't know. I think she's completely delusional. I do think she thought she was a good and is still a great politician who just hang on, I've got to mute my microphone again.
Well, I don't think she was ever considered by anybody, even in her own party, to be legitimate. I just thought they saw her as a patsy, somebody like a wood pigeon outside your window. Like they just thought they could stick her in there, have her do the bitings of the broader Conservative Party, and then if she got chopped, it wouldn't matter because she wasn't that important. That's how I think. I think she was a pawn in the Conservative Party.
I don't. I still think she, in her mind, though, thinks she is and it could still be a great prime minister. But who knows? So I don't really want to get inside Liz Truss's mind.
It's full of iceberg lettuce. Remember that that thing in the press where it was like, what will stay alive longer, like her as prime minister or this iceberg lettuce?
Mm-hmm. And the lettuce won.
And the lettuce was on the front of the newspaper. I mean, how ridiculous is the UK press as well? Like that was the front page.
Well, it was a live webcam, wasn't it? It was a live webcam set up with a lettuce. It was genius. It was actually genius.
Yeah, but this is state of politics.
It's tempting to look at Dump and his cabinet or whatever they call them, and just think, how long can this last? I mean, we haven't even mentioned. I don't even know if I want to go there, but like Lone Scum and his Nazi salute, and his appearance at the German far right conference, like his video appearance. You look at these people and you just think, well, how long can this situation last? I mean, it just looks like, but that's just wishful thinking, I suppose, that it will all implode around them.
With Dump, it's like so far from competence, right? Like what you're saying, like it could implode, but in the meantime, as it's on its way to implosion, it's also stripping away everything else with it. It's taking everything down in flames with it. So, I mean, like that plane just crashed in DC. All right. Did you see his response?
I haven't watched it. I've read about it, but I can't bring myself to watch it. And he blamed DEI, is that right?
Yeah, like diversity, hiring. He tried to blame.
In what sense?
It is as nonsensical as it sounds.
Did he try and spell out how directly that was impacted by DEI?
I don't want to misquote. I don't owe him anything, but
I
don't want to misquote,
misrepresent.
But it was something to do with, diversity hires, like people of color and women being in jobs that, people are too important to leave it up to them or something.
So similar. What if all the aircraft are being flown by white men, it wouldn't have happened? Is that what he's getting at?
Or he says we need the best, and maybe the DEI strategies were not concentrating on finding the best. They were more concentrating on just ticking boxes, Um, but
I mean,
it's
how do you even have an intelligent response to that?
yeah.
Just
So, and like I'm surprised, like accidents happen, right? Like as Thomas the Tank Engine says, accidents happen now and again.
mhm.
But like how many planes are landing at DC Airport every hour? There's
Yeah,
probably hundreds, right? Or
yeah,
100. And then there are all those Army and Navy helicopters flying up and down that river all the
mm,
time.
hmm,
It's not completely out of the realms of possibility that an accident is going to happen.
yeah.
Like there are safety things in place, but there's things like such as
I
human
mean,
error. You
accidents
know,
happen like all the time, not with massive frequency, but
yeah,
aircraft go down all the time, all over the world.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but without having any statistics
yeah,
to fall back on, the just the mention of DEI just seems
yeah,
so out of context, absurdist, and
yeah.
irresponsible
I
in
mean,
that situation.
there's this bit here that says Dump signed a memorandum on aviation safety that orders a review of federal aviation hiring and safety decisions to undo the damage that he says was done by Joe Biden's diversity policies. And while signing it, he reiterated the unproven claims that diversity, equity, and inclusion policies may have played a role in the crash.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he not only says this outrageous stuff, but then he doubles down on it. There's zero evidence or any sort of supporting, even anecdotal. It's just
Yeah.
nonsense.
Well, it's classic. It's classic right wing playbook, isn't it? It's take any situation where people feel shocked or threatened
Mm-hmm.
or a level of discomfort, and use one group of people as a political football. So whether that's women, people of color, whether it's trans people,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's immigrants, you name it, but it's just done with such crass, uh, just. It's just so disgusting. It's just I
Yeah.
don't even have the words to describe it. But yeah, it's just so distasteful.
I mean, it's falling apart in the US. People's rights are being stripped away.
And all
Like,
the funding they like Trump's already cancelled all that funding for overseas aid, particularly to Ukraine,
yeah.
and the impact of that. I mean, yeah. Anyway,
And,
let's
and, and, and what he
get
was
into it.
saying about, oh, I've ordered the tap or the faucet to be turned on in Northern California to send water back down to Southern California. The Democrats switched off this pipe a long time ago. People are coming out, like you name it,
What's he talking about?
like politicians, firefighters, community members, anyone is just saying we have no concept of what he's talking about. And so he was saying, I'm going to switch it on, I'm going to switch it on. 2 days ago, he said, I'm really pleased to announce that I've switched the pipe on. Beautiful, clean, fresh water is now flowing back down to California, who are in desperate need. People are like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no tap that's been turned off. There's no. It's just
But that's the
like,
thing. We're in a post-truth era where things like that don't matter. Truth
yeah.
doesn't matter anymore.
We were talking about William S. Burroughs the other day and like these like non-linear like novels of his, like The Naked Lunch. This is like living inside one. This
Yeah,
is like there's no truth or thread of like linear like sense making or logistic. Nothing. It's all just
yeah.
like it's like living in like the upside down or something.
It's like living in a bad dream where you just go from one absurd situation to another. Nothing seems to make sense. You don't carry knowledge forwards from anything. It's just lurching from one chaotic nightmare to another. That's
So
the world today.
I'm very worried about you know the personal protections of individuals and communities, like not only in the US but all around the world.
Well,
Like,
globally, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's very scary, and I I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
Kakistocracy, it is the least suitable or competent people in charge.
should we run for office? Should we become like local politicians and try and start enacting
but
change?
it's such an unenviable profession to go into, isn't it?
But I
You know,
suppose if you want to look at it from a public service point of view, you would be sacrificing yourself for the good of humanity.
yeah. But then you look at surveys like the one I referenced, earlier in this podcast, where young people seem to be leaning away from democracy and democratic process, and you think, well, what is the future of politics? If you could sort of guarantee that, yeah, you could work hard and perhaps make a difference, but what if people are just going to elect people on TikTok or something? What if that becomes the future of politics?
So I think there needs to be a new approach to politics, and that people like Dump have gotten into bed with like these tech oligarchs, like Lone Scum or like Facebook, whatever, right? And so they've teamed up, and so they push this agenda that this alpha, you know, male,
Oh, it's horrible. It's like authoritarian
yeah,
crypto bro fucking
yeah. So
climate
that
denying. Just
they've able to like partner with these tech companies and push that agenda and socialize young people into believing that that is the best alternative or the best option they have for their societies. And so it could be chipped away and have other people get involved. But the problem is, we're now in this situation. You can't be an ethical billionaire. Like,
no,
you can't have someone have that much sway and that much influence over the voting patterns of young people and be a good person. Because, yeah, it would be great if someone like Lone Scum came along and had enough money to actually shift the public consciousness around like social justice. But they would never get to that position of being rich enough to do that and be a good person. You can't be. You can't be a good billionaire.
no.
You know, like even somebody like I don't know who's not known to be an asshole, but someone like um I don't know, like Selena Gomez, who's a billionaire now, or Rihanna, right? They're billionaires.
I know.
They have become billionaires at the expense of other people. Like you don't somebody works
Well,
for them, somebody getting minimum wage or less,
hmm.
or somebody works for their perfume company or their makeup company or their lingerie company or
Yeah. Well, this
materials.
is this
What's
is
that?
capitalism. This is
Yeah.
capitalism, and this is what's at fault there, though.
And so these people are billionaires are inherent like can't be good people. Like you can't be a billionaire and be a decent person because even if you have all the goodwill consideration for them as people, they are engaged in business practices that
Yeah.
exploit chains of people and whole communities of people. Like somebody like Rihanna, if she sells like a million G strings out of her new lingerie line on the opening weekend, or Kim Kardashian sells like a million like those Skims underwear that she sells, to be able to for that to be profitable on that scale, it has to be probably made in a sweatshop. It probably has to be shipped through something like Amazon or some other drop shipping where people have really bad workers' rights and pay. It has to use materials that are not necessarily ethically sourced. Like all of these things have to happen for that person to become a billionaire.
But I would just sort of not counter that, but caveat that with one observation, and that is, I think we've got to stop looking, or we've got to stop thinking of people as good or bad people. The system is wrong. The system is
Yes,
flawed.
that's right.
It's
Yeah,
flawed. FLAW,
yeah,
not flawed. The system
yeah.
is wrong here because everyone is good and bad. Everyone has
Yes,
elements to their personality that
that's
are
right.
well intentioned or bad intentioned or just indifferent. But the system is flawed. Like, we shouldn't allow the accrual. Accrual, is that the word? We shouldn't allow people to accrue that much individual wealth. There should be laws that stop why is there why is it legally possible to accrue an unlimited amount of money?
Yeah.
I mean, there should be rules in place on a not just on a national level, but on a global level against that sort of concentration of wealth. There is
Yeah.
no need for lone scum to have that much personal wealth. Why does that exist? You know,
Yeah.
and that's just one person. But yeah, if you want to pick someone like Rihanna, like there's no reason for someone to accrue that much wealth, and
And
they might be well intentioned, but you wouldn't have accrued that much wealth without the exploitation of hundreds, thousands, millions perhaps of other people in the world. And
yeah.
so yeah, it's not a case of looking at individuals perhaps, but looking at society, looking at the way we govern ourselves.
Yeah.
It's
And
just it's
and
so
that
wrong.
really famous quote, talking about like things that quotes from movies that we liked. Actually, it was a line in Hedwig, but it's a famous quote from before that. That absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hedwig says it in the movie. I don't even know who said it originally. But that idea that like if you became a billionaire, you lose the ability. You have that ability to operate ethically, taken away from you by a broken system. To
Mm-hmm.
hold on and to remain a billionaire, you then have to engage in unethical practices that do not have everybody's rights at their heart. So, like now with the owner of Facebook or Meta, is now like going to Dump's inauguration, and it's like these are like the three richest people in the world, or three of the four richest people in the world, who are all like sort of tech owners and social media and media owners were all there at the president's inauguration. That shouldn't be allowed.
No,
Like they
no.
shouldn't be allowed to talk
Well, it's
in the
just
ear of
yeah,
that person and vice versa.
yeah, yeah. It's obscene. It's just truly obscene. But yeah, I think we should wrap up
I know
because
I'm just getting angry now.
I can feel another coughing fit coming on, so I want to sort of try and like squeeze in a wrap up before that happens.
Okay. Well, I'd like
But
to send a shout out to Julie and Tony and to say, I'm sure I probably annoyed you just as much as you annoyed me back in the day. And Julie, I'm sorry for taking advantage of your bros mania by selling you that record, but please know that I did get to see Alanis with that ticket, and I'll always remember that.
and yeah, I should apologise as well to that person who took my theatre tickets without thanking me the other night. I'm sure it was an oversight. I'm sure you appreciated them, even if you didn't voice that appreciation directly.
Oh, and also Tony is actually a good friend of mine now, all these 30 years later. And if anyone wants to follow Tony, look for him on all social media. I think it's Camp Counselor, like
Okay.
CAMP Counselor. And
Yeah.
he's a very good laugh. He posts a lot about pop culture, music, and musicals, and he's a good laugh. I've lost touch with Julie over the years, but I know she still exists and is still friends with everybody. But people sort of drift
There's
apart, don't
still
they?
a bigger Take That fan than you are.
Oh, clearly, and probably a bigger Spice Girls fan than that little girl ever was as well.
Yeah. All
So,
right. Well, let's wrap up. If you want to find out what I'm up to, you can find me on Instagram and on Spotify, Josh and the Jump Starts. What about you, Sean?
well, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to grow our subscriber base slowly, and it's going up. I mean, I can remember when it was 3, and now it's 20. So, if you
That's a
if you could,
5,000% increase, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, look at us. We'll be billionaires soon.
I know we'll be horrible corporate capitalist billionaires soon.
But yeah, please do subscribe. But you can also follow me at Fat Gay Vegan. And if you want to read my blog, you can go to fatgayvegan.com. I'm blogging there, and you can see on the events page all of the events coming up, including supper clubs and the queer open mic that I run with Josh. And are you starting that other one? Do we have to announce that soon?
Oh yeah, we should. So yeah, we've already talked about the monthly queer open mic that we do at the Cock Tavern in Kennington. That's always on the last Sunday of the month. But I'm starting another one in the Ye Olde Rose and Crown pub in Greenwich, and that's on the first Wednesday in March, which I think, off the top of my head, is the 4th, but I
No,
could be
it's the
wrong.
5th.
The 5th, okay.
It's the 5th, and that's next week. At the time of recording.
No, it's not. It's February next week. This starts in March, so
I've got
you're
no
a month
idea.
early. You're a month early.
I've got no idea what I'm talking about then.
Okay.
But I won't be able to come to that one because on the first Wednesday of every month I host London Vegan Social.
That's right. Yeah.
So you can also come to that. Maybe we'll have a competition to see who can get more people at their event.
Sounds good. All right. Well, hang on. I was going to say something else then, but you totally you sideswiped me with the open mic thing. But I can't remember.
I know what you're going to say. But can we finish with like your favorite Take That lyric, maybe?
Oh. Well, it's one of those misheard lyric things. What's the line? What's the line in a million love songs something and here I am? A million love songs later, okay. Because he doesn't enunciate it very well. It sounds like, and I always thought he was saying a million love songs are laid off, and I was like, what does he mean laid off? Because the way he sings it, it's very.
I think it's weird in Everything Changes.
Oh, not a great song.
Where doesn't he say something about the rumor's true? What's that lyric?
That's a terrible song, isn't it? Everything Changes.
In verse 2, the rumor's true, you know that there have been others. So he's like admitting that he's cheating on this person, now he's leaving. It's
just horrible.
Such a weird song.
It was the 90s.
Oh well.
But okay, well, I don't know. Favorite Take That lyric, probably something from Back for Good. I think that's a great pop song. But I'm gonna go before my voice just disappears completely. Yeah, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in your feeds this time next week. Until then, take care.
Take that and party.